Welcome everybody to another episode of the NXT Party. This is for episode number 27 of NXT UK. I am of course your host, the Wizard of No DQ, Stefan Osborne, joined as always by the General Jerry Slaughter.
Good evening, wrestling fans.
And tonight our special guest in his NXT Party debut, we've got the Holiday, Chris Mace. How's it going, Chris?
Going good. How y'all doing tonight?
We're doing great. Thank you for finally being on the show. This is a pleasure. Let's get right into the show because there's a lot to review despite the fact that there wasn't but 3 matches. And in my personal opinion, not the best show that I've seen them do. NXT UK is better than this. And it could have ended on a great note, but somehow they managed to ruin that too.
With this episode, we got more of the fallout from NXT Takeover UK Blackpool.
Yeah.
Because we actually had the dark matches like this last week. So this is the first time we've actually seen everybody since the actual event itself.
Yeah, brand new tapings.
Oh yeah, but even then, like, there wasn't really a lot going on except for. Well, the first segment, and then we get the match no one was waiting for at the end. And
well, before we get to the first segment, before they even intro the show with the graphics and the music and all of that, we get a recap of what happened at NXT UK Takeover Blackpool between Travis Banks and Jordan Devlin. And this is where, Travis Banks shows up, Jordan Devlin attacks him out of nowhere in the lobby, and then, takes out his knee against the wall. And then before the match, Banks attacks Jordan Devlin. Suicide dives him. And they brawl, but then Jordan Devlin gets the upper hand, works over the knee again, and puts Travis Banks out. So we ended up getting Jordan Devlin versus Finn Balor. Much better match, I think.
Oh, yeah.
Especially if they were going to end that match the way they did tonight. But we will get to that. First off, we have Pete Dunne coming out to the ring. The Bruiserweight. Great pop as always. It's like 610 days now that he has been WWE UK champion. What did you think about Pete Dunne's promo?
I like Pete Dunne's promo, how he came out there and everything. One thing they need to do, they need to change that title to the NXT UK title.
Yes.
We are firm believers of that.
He's only been in one match on Raw, and that was against Enzo Amore a while back. I mean, he doesn't defend it on Raw or SmackDown. It needs to just be changed to the NXT UK title. Leave that alone. Just stop calling it a WWE title. He's not defending it on WWE TV.
Thank you.
I was about to say, the brand now has like an official tag team champion and an official women's champion. It only makes sense that they would have like the belt be officially the NXT UK championship.
Been saying this for weeks, fellas.
Oh yes. Well, we've been saying that since the beginning of the show.
Well, we get Pete Dunne, and then almost immediately we get Joe Coffey and Gallus. We've got Wolfgang and Mark Coffey come out there with him.
Wolfgang looking like Weird Al. And we had.
I think Mark Coffey looks like an 80s or 90s sitcom stepdad. That's how he's dressed.
And Joe's dressed like he's ready to drive an ice truck on A&E series or something.
Yeah. Very odd casual wear or sport casual, whatever it is. Very odd wears by Gallus. But still, Joe comes out and he basically says, "I'm not done with you." And I'm sitting here like, I agree with the crowd. You tapped out.
Still my kingdom.
You are definitely done with Pete Dunne for now. Maybe Wolfgang. Maybe Mark, but certainly not Joe. You had your opportunity. You're done. But then we had the lights go out. And Walter, or Water, whatever you want to call him, he stands with his silhouette on the stage and then in the dark, and then somehow they do that. They managed to do it with Lars Sullivan. Why not him?
Yeah.
So we get Walter come out, and for the entirety of this, he says absolutely nothing.
Which is awesome.
And
That's the way to be. Just be quiet. He's being one of those silent people. He's going to let his actions speak louder than his words, pretty much there.
Yep.
And we had him basically intimidate Joe out of the ring because Joe looks like he wants to fight him, but then you've got Wolfgang and Mark holding Joe back, Yeah, right.
Yeah.
So they go to leave, and then Wolfgang and Mark turn around. They run in the ring, and Walter and Dunn fight them off.
Dispatch them real quick, yeah.
And Joe doesn't want any part of it, and so Gallus is run off. And in the ring, we have Walter. We've got Pete Dunne. We've got the title laying on the mat, and Walter's looking at the title, so he doesn't have to say anything.
Yeah.
We know what he wants, but whether he's going to be a heel or a baby face in getting to it, we don't know that yet.
No.
What did you think about this match, Chris? Or not this match, this segment, Chris?
I like this segment. I like how Walter was quiet. Like I said, I just think he needs to be quiet. He needs to let his actions speak louder than his words. He's already made his intention clear. He wants that title. He's going to go after that title. I see him being more of a heel. He's going to end up being more, maybe a vicious heel or something when he debuts in his debut match next week. We'll see how he does and everything like that, and see if he's going to play the role of the heel or more of a face. I can just see him being more of a evil, vicious heel going after Pete Dunne.
He does give off that Bond villain vibe.
I like what they're doing with him in that they're playing the middle between heel or face. The fact that he hasn't said anything, he hasn't really done anything other than dispatch Joe or Gallus to get them out of his business. That's either face or heel. They're straddling the line, and I like it.
I think what they're ultimately doing with Walter is what they're doing with a lot of these guys, and letting the fans kind of decide who they're going to root for and who they're going to like.
I think in the short term, right now, what they're doing is they're capitalizing off of his momentum coming in and debuting. Mm-hmm. Everybody knew who he was. Everybody was expecting him, but they weren't necessarily expecting him at Blackpool. But they got him, and he's getting cheered like a babyface just because they're glad to see him.
Yeah.
That's probably going to last several weeks, even a couple of months, if he doesn't say anything or do anything where he commits to being a babyface or a heel.
Yeah.
And then, like you said, maybe they're testing the waters. Maybe they're still making the decision. Maybe they're ultimately going to turn him heel, and they're hoping they can get the crowd so behind him as this non-committal figure that when they do turn him heel, it's that instant from love to hate.
That instant betrayal feel, yeah.
And so they hate him even more as a heel, which is ultimately the goal. And so I like this. It's been twice we've seen him now, and he hasn't really... He's just stared at the title. He hasn't done anything babyface to challenge for it, and he hasn't done anything heel to take out Pete Dunne.
Speaking of heel, the next segment's got quite possibly the greatest one we have, in the business right now.
Who, Sid Scala?
Well, I was about to say, Sid Scala makes an announcement, but then shortly after that we get,
So we've got an interview backstage with Sid Scala, and he's basically talking about Phoenix and the Worlds Collide tournament, and they're going to tape 3 episodes of UK there. So it's kind of like a weird update. But then, out of the corner of his eye, he sees Gibson and Drake coming in with their titles.
The Grizzled Young Veterans.
The Grizzled Young Veterans. And he wants to get a word with them. How you feeling after the win? What's next? And Gibson's like, oh, so now you want time with us.
Now you want to talk to us. Now we're a big deal.
And I'm like, Radzi was interviewing you before.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know what you're talking about, but it wasn't Sid Scala giving a shit. And suddenly Sid Scala gives a shit. And I like the way he did kind of seem to show more interest than he normally would.
Yeah.
I mean, I think he played into their idea of what he's doing just enough that it's like, all right, because it makes him kind of cool.
Yeah.
In blowing him off. Fuck you, man.
Yep.
We knew we were going to win these titles before we won them, and you couldn't get behind us, but now you want to. So I dig this. What do you think about this sort of interview?
It was interesting how they did it, because of that, like I said, they're playing up the fact, we weren't important enough. You didn't doubted us. You didn't think we were going to win these fucking belts. So now that we won them, now we're the champions. So now why do you want to even talk to us now? We're the champs now. Now we're a big deal to you? No, we don't want to talk to you. We don't have time for you. I mean, I don't...
What I love is how he kept on saying we and Drake wasn't saying shit.
I'm hoping that it becomes a rare occurrence, because we did see him give, 2-3 sentences worth.
I think it's going to be one of those things where anytime Drake says anything, it's going to be stuff that you'll want to listen to. Almost
it's like Silent Bob.
Silent Bob, yes.
It's always worth listening to.
The UK version of Jay and Silent Bob. That'll work.
There you go. It almost is.
And then I was about to say universally hated Zach Gibson and universally wise James Drake.
So this sets up an announcement for next week, and it's basically, I'm assuming, an interview or an in-ring promo. We're going to get Gibson and Drake, or probably just Gibson, talking about what's next for them.
Yep.
So I look forward to that because I really dig Gibson and Drake. I'm the only person in the No DQ NXT team that got a point because I said, "Fuck, man, they're gonna get the titles first."
I
saying.
couldn't see it happening.
my only point.
But I couldn't see it happening. But I was so happy when it did. Me and him both just jumped up like, "Fuck yeah!"
You knew you should have gotten on the bandwagon. You went last too, right after me. You totally could have been like, "You're right, man."
And I told everybody else to shut up, and then that didn't need their their glory and chanting.
Yeah, and you were totally right about that.
Yeah.
So we finally get our first match of the night, one of 3. We've got Nina Samuels, and I was like, oh, jobber alert. Come to find out, she's facing Lana Austin, who we've never heard of, so maybe that's jobber alert. And you called it. You told me she won the last match that we saw her in.
Yeah.
So Nina Samuels isn't like on a losing streak anymore necessarily.
I like Nina Samuels. She's got that cool look to her. She got the heel poses down.
I don't know about cool. She came out and basically her one piece was mesh and see-through, and it had some I think like flowers or something design on it. But essentially she was out there in her bra and briefs.
Yeah.
And thigh highs, which I'm not opposed to.
But
I wouldn't necessarily call it style.
It's cool. It's a cool look for her.
I'm sure it is. Lana Austin looked basic. So very basic.
Yes.
In the ring, I think the coolest move she did was one of those snaps, overhead snap mirrors.
Yeah.
To seated Samuels, and that was the only thing they
replayed. I was about to say she did the rolling forearm, but that was like one of the only other offensive moves she got in. Otherwise, it was all Nina Samuels.
Well, she got offense in,
You got the uppercuts in.
Rest holds and a few hits. She had some pretty good strikes, but this was to make Nina Samuels look good, and I don't even think they succeeded in that.
No.
What did you think about this match, Chris?
It was pretty much like a dud match. I mean, it's pretty much like a glorified squash match. They let her have a little bit of offense, but at the end, she hit her finisher and beat her. I mean, it wasn't really that much to it. It was just a basic match.
The weird thing about the match for me was the fact that they were playing up so much that this was like her big moment. Her kids are going to be watching, and they pretty much were like trying to get us to sympathize so much with Lana that I think even probably the crowd got like little brochures or something going in. It's like, oh, that's gonna be her. That's gonna be neat. That's gonna be her first match. Great. Because after the match, like Nina was getting booed like crazy. I'm not sure if it was just the fact that the match was kind of dull, or is just the fact that like maybe there actually is some heat going behind Nina Samuels at this point.
Yeah, I get a sense that they're trying to make Nina Samuels look like a heel, but she doesn't do a very good job of that on her own.
No.
Like it was very hard for me to tell, other than listening to the commentary, that Nina Samuels was playing the heel. It kind of seemed like either one of them could be whatever.
Yeah.
This was a boring match. I have no notes other than the finisher because they finally named it. It's called the Prima Donna, and it's a fireman's carry neck breaker.
Yeah.
Over the knee. It was an okay match, dude, but nothing.
The natural selection on her too, if you think about it.
So that match is over, and let's just move on, because it was nothing. It was. I mean, it wasn't necessarily boring, but it was nothing.
No.
So up next, we get a video recap of NXT UK, the Tag Team Championship match at Blackpool. And this sets up an interview backstage with Mustache Mountain. I believe this was an exclusive right after they lost.
Yeah.
And it couldn't have been right after, because I don't think Trent Seven was still bleeding from the back of his head. Looked like they had cleaned the blood off of him. So maybe they had toweled off. He got a few staples to the head.
Yeah.
And then washed his hair, and then they had an interview. But basically, Trent Seven seemed to be a little bit down And then Tyler
Extremely
Bates,
despondent is the word.
the difference between everybody else and Mustache Mountain, even though we were supposed to do this, we were supposed to be the first. This is what we tried to do the whole time from the first, either the first episode or the second episode when they came out and made a call to all the individuals in NXT UK. Said, group up, make tag teams, and give us somebody to fight. And Gibson and Drake did.
Yes.
And they did it very well. But Tyler Bates like, well, we're going to pick ourselves up, we're going to dust ourselves off, and we're going to get better, and we're going to get where we want to go. Like, we're not going to give up. And this seems to cheer up Trent Seven. But it just kind of puts a little nod into a possible tear here.
Yeah, I was about to say, I already saw a little bit of dissension. Because even then, when Tyler was trying to, boost him up, it just looked like Tyler really had to work hard to actually do that. Because Trent was just completely... He was just beating himself up about it is what he was. So,
Chris, what did you think about the interview backstage with Mustache Mountain?
Seems like he beat himself up after a tough loss. They probably were thinking they were going to win the championships, and then they didn't. And then I could see where they possibly set up a rematch for the tag championships, and then the fact that one of them turns on each other, more than likely Trent turns on Tyler and does that.
That wouldn't shock me at all, and that'd be like one of those feuds that I think could go on for quite some time and actually be pretty great. We'll actually see more out of Trent Seven, I think, if we actually saw a feud between him and Tyler Bate.
My only problem with this is the fact that Mustache Mountain is like the most established tag team. Even though they're not the champs, they are still the most established tag team in NXT UK right now. Do you really want to break that up?
Yes.
We're only 27 episodes in, dude. That's only half a year.
Yeah.
Like, that's 6 months worth of show. And I'm thinking no. Just my opinion.
Yeah.
Don't break them up yet. God, maybe tease it a little bit. That way, and then bring them back together. That way, when it does happen, it's out of nowhere.
Mm-hmm.
But at the same time, you're like, oh yeah, this was bound to happen. We just forgot. Maybe something like that.
They can build them up. They can win some matches here and there, and then do that, and then build them up to get back to chasing for getting a shot at the tag titles, and then they lose again. They're not able to get past this team, and then just
out of nowhere, Trent Seven with a forearm to the back of Tyler Bates' head.
Yep.
Yeah, I like that better than doing it now.
That would actually be great because it'd be building up hope in Trent Seven only for like them to lose, and especially if Tyler Bate ends up getting pinned that time.
So another 4 to 6 months from now, maybe.
Possibly.
I'd be okay with it then, especially if they do get it run at the tag team championships.
Yeah.
That would be better, because establish them even more. Just saying. So after that, we get another WWE exclusive, or WWE.com, I think, exclusive.
Yep.
An interview with Toni Storm after her women's championship victory, and Radzi wants to know what's the difference between the Toni Storm he sees now and the one that got her back hurt in the first match for the NXT UK Women's Championship.
Bangs.
That's what I figured.
Did
she had bangs during that match? I think that was the first match where she had the bangs.
Yeah.
The bangs! What did you think about her interview, Chris?
It was just pretty simple. She was just happy she won the title, and she was just happy about it, and see what she does in the future, pretty much. We'll just see how everything plays out, who's going to be her next challenger for that title.
She looked at Radzi very coy-like,
yeah.
And he looked back at her very coy-like.
Yes.
I'm like, they're going to make out when the camera goes off.
They're totally going to do it.
Somebody needs to kiss somebody around here, I'm just saying. Not in this room, though.
No, not in this room. No.
Up next, we get our second match of the night. We've got Eddie Dennis versus Jamie Ahmed. Now I smell a jobber.
Yes.
And it needs to happen because Eddie Dennis needs something, because he has gotten completely flattened out by Mastiff, both figuratively and literally.
It was one of those moments where we were just kind of sitting there watching Eddie Dennis come down the ramp, and we didn't have that excitement. We didn't have that, like almost feeling of tenseness or dread out of him.
He didn't seem as foreboding at all, and I think part of his entrance kind of showed that, because I don't think it was near as dark. He didn't seem near as serious and angry and focused coming down to the ring. So he needed something, and he does get this victory. Not a lot of notes here.
No.
Ahmed puts up a little bit of a good fight. He's a good striker. Apparently, he was a boxer for 15 years.
And his dad was a pretty big one around in that area as well.
He nails a standing kick to the side of Eddie Dennis's head that was just sickening sounding.
Yes.
Oh my. But eventually, Dennis gets one of his finishers. He goes for the severed bridge.
Yeah.
But Ahmed gets out of that, and he gets in a few 6 strikes there too. But eventually, we get the next stop driver.
Yeah.
And the pinfall, and Eddie Dennis.
No real follow through or anything. Just him beating the jobber, and they're saying it's like now he's back on track. It's like he just beat somebody.
Well, we got a power move out of Dennis. He does this deadlift superplex, but it's off the middle rope, not the top rope.
Yeah.
But still, he's got him damn near horizontal to him, and then deadlifts him up into a superplex.
Yeah.
So that was pretty,
That was cool. Impressive.
But
that's moving the match.
But the entirety of this match, boring. Other than a few spots, like literally boring. And I wouldn't even call the Nina Samuels match boring, but this one kind of was. But we're gonna get made up for that.
Yeah.
The main event is gonna be sweet, but before we get there, we've got a tweet from Johnny Saint.
One of the greatest tweets I think I've ever read in my entire life. So we get a tweet from Johnny Saint pretty much saying like, so Mustache Mountain wants to get back on track. We're going to give him that opportunity. We're going to put him in a match with our boys, Fabian Eichner and Marcel Bartel.
And we're going to get that next week, and I'm psyched for next week now.
Oh, yes.
And if I didn't have reason to be psyched before, the next thing we get to find out before our main event is that Walter debuts next week.
Yep.
And I'm assuming by debut, they're talking about an actual match.
Yep.
Not him talking.
If it was just going to be him talking, it would have said, like, that he's appearing. Or...
Well, he's already appeared.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But we're getting his in-ring debut for NXT UK next week on top of that match. So
that's awesome. I don't know if I don't remember if I asked. Did you have any comments about the Eddie Dennis match, Chris?
I was about to say it was a pretty basic match. Like I said, he did that deadlift, which was a good move, and I like that. And then pretty much, like I said, they kept referencing, oh man, he's a 15-year boxer. I referenced that most of the match.
Yeah, it's true. That's why I remember it.
It's really all they can really spout off about him. Is like it seemed like they know the jobber's history more than a person that's actually kicking their ass.
Well, I mean, it told part of the story of the match, and that most of the offense that Ahmed got in was some really good strikes, and especially that kick. So like he must have been a kickboxer too, because that was a solid kick to the side of Dennis's face.
So we had two people like on this show that pretty much brought shame to their families.
That's the way you want to put it, I guess. So on to the main event.
Yeah.
Finally, Jordan Devlin, Travis Banks. We're gonna get the match that we should have gotten a takeover. Thank God we didn't, though. I really was.
That was a pleasant surprise.
Yeah, and
supplies.
Supplies. That was pleasant surprise. It was also a great surprise.
Yeah.
By the way, see Finn Balor, and it was a great match, and Finn Balor got the victory, and maybe that's what propelled him into the spotlight and the Royal Rumble match for the Universal Championship. Who knows, man? But it is an awful big coincidence. Anyway, no one could have predicted that. That's why nobody got a point for it.
Yeah.
Chris, I'm going to go to you first about Jordan Devlin versus Travis Banks. And feel free to spoil it there at the end and share your opinions, because I think you felt about the ending the way that we felt about the ending.
I mean, like I said, at the beginning of the match, I thought it was good. Banks came out there like he was just pissed off. Oil and Vinegar came out there just beating the shit out of him. And then it said he went back and forth. One of my favorite spots is when he did the Spanish fly onto the outside.
Yes.
They could have done it where they ended the match there if he had wanted to, where he pushed him to the guardrail and got back in the ring when it was the 8 count. They could have done it, some kind of chicken shit heel thing where he got a win by a count out. But that finish at the end where neither one of them made it to the count of 10 was just complete bullshit. They should have at least had a finish to the match, or they could have done something where they had some kind of screwy finish, or
closure,
or a double pin. But it seems like to me, I know we may be in disagreement, but it seems like to me they're trying to set up for a last man standing match later on. Maybe for their next pay-per-view, they're going to continue this feud until then.
Yeah, this is Eddie Dennis versus Dave Mastiff all over again.
Yeah.
I think that was their second match, was the one that got turned in, or got double disqualified or whatever, and turned into their final match at TakeOver. So yeah, this is looking like it's going to be another match, some kind of stipulation, probably going to be on NXT UK TV, so that's good. Hopefully that one gives us enough closure that we're like, okay, we're fine with the ending from the previous match, because this was a pretty good match. Like it started, I would say slow, but not really slow. Like normally when a match starts slow, there's a lot of rest holds and shit like that. This one was just a lot of them beating the shit out of each other.
Yeah.
So not really any high spots or great moves or anything like that. They're just beating the shit out of each other for a while until somebody gets the upper hand. And then I've got a bunch of fucking notes. Because, like you said, they're on the apron and Devlin shoves Travis Banks back first into the post. He stays on the apron somehow. What the fuck ever. Anyway, so he grabs him up, Spanish fly off the apron onto the fucking floor.
Yeah.
Now, granted, I heard there was a spine buster or something onto the mat, and I'm like, that's a pretty padded mat.
Yeah.
Which I'm all for. I'm all for padding down everything so it's safer to do moves, so you can do crazy-ass shit because it's safer to land.
Yeah.
That's just my opinion. I break kayfabe all you want to. I don't care if the ring starts to have a sheen glow because there's this stuff that's keeping them from getting hurt. I don't care. If it means they can do crazier shit, I'm all for it.
Mm-hmm.
So, in that vein, we got another Spanish fly. This time in the ring.
No sell for you, though.
Off the ropes comes Banks. Fucking Spanish fly into, like you said, complete no sells. Travis Banks just pops right back up. And
that killer clothesline, I think it was.
And then, he hits a clothesline that turns Devlin completely inside out. And then they do this spot where they're like holding each other's arms. And they're like kind of half out of it, just standing there holding arms. So Devlin hits this high knee. And then Travis Banks counters with a wicked headbutt.
Yeah.
But then Devlin just shakes it off, pulls up Travis Banks into that ripcord pull-up.
High angle back drop.
Yeah, belly to back driver. Jesus.
Yes.
Still love that move. At least we didn't see all of the greatest hits. We didn't get to witness the Uranagi into a standing moonsault. That was cool. But we did see a moonsault.
Yeah.
Got a lot of air, but Banks counters with his knees. And then, let's see, he goes for that drop kick into the corner that's straight out of Finn Balor's playbook, which is kind of a fun nod.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know if he always does that, but it was fun. Comes off of that into, he calls the Kiwi Crusher, which is a fireman suplex into a Michinoku driver near fall. Totally called the near fall.
I was about to say, like, Travis Banks, I've made, like, no bones about this. He hasn't impressed me. Like, basically, he's super injury prone, and anytime he was in any kind of match or announced match, he was being injured before he even got out to the ring. So
or injuring himself, shit.
So for this match, it was actually really cool because we actually got to see a lot of what makes him actually, like, you know, what he was on the indie scene, which was a champion and like all around striker, because he has a lot of moves that are very much like Yoshihiro Tajiri and Low Ki, because the Kiwi Crusher is straight up the Ki Crusher that Low Ki would do, and a bunch of stomps and the kicks that he does are derived from those two wrestlers. So I was actually, I'm gonna say it, I was impressed.
So after the Kiwi Crusher near fall, I guess they're slow to get up, but I don't know who got up first, but Banks goes for that slice of heaven, that kick off of running into the ropes and springing back or whatever.
He picked him up at the same time and was just trying to hold him into place.
So Devlin just collapses, like faints, collapses.
Best reversal ever.
Yeah. Unintentionally escapes the move, so he dodges out of the way, and then They both get up, and Devlin goes for an Ireland's call, but he can't hold up Banks, and they both topple through the ropes to the outside. And to their credit, the falls both look sick.
Yeah.
And they lay out there for a 10 count, and
Yep.
neither one of them can beat the count out. And we've got a double count out victory, or double count out loss. They both lost, I guess. Nobody won. And then they both get up on the outside, and they look at each other, and they start taking the tape off, man. And then I call this after-match fisticuffs.
Yes.
Because they just start beating each other's asses again. It's like, this is the reset. We had the breakdown, and now this is the reset, and they're just beating each other up again.
So that's where we're getting the ideas from the Falls Count Anywhere or anything else like follow-up to this match. But the ending just...
Nothing where Johnny Saint comes out and says, "You guys, if you can't get along and play by the rules,
we're going to make it so there are no rules."
You know, something interesting. We don't get that. And so that brings us to the end of the main event.
Yep.
And around these parts, we rate the main event for NXT UK using NXT. Good old NXT. Out of 5 spots of NXT as our special guest, Chris, in your debut here on the NXT party, where do you rate this main event?
I would give it a 3. I would have, if they would have had a finish to it, I thought it would have been a pretty damn good match if they had a finish. I actually really liked the main event until that finish. Once they did that double count out, it was just complete horse shit. After that, it was just like, what was the point of going through all that?
Right.
I mean, they had psychology there. He was beating up Banks. He was working on his knee. He was working on his back. I mean, there was good psychology. It was an awesome match, and then to that ending, and that ending just completely just took the air right out of everything.
I couldn't say it better myself, but Jerry, try.
I can't either. You even use the word psychology. Like we haven't had that word used on here yet, but yeah, that's definitely. I'm gonna have to go with him with this one on 3. It was very middle of the road. But for you and I, we were talking about this, and I was already not expecting a good match out of this, and
I was expecting a good match. I wasn't expecting anything entertaining because at this point I could give a shit less.
But you also had me convinced. It's like, okay, but Devlin's in it, and we like Devlin.
Right,
Devlin
I could give a shit
great.
less about Travis Banks. However, Jordan Devlin would save the match.
But Travis actually did show us some good shit in this match, so I couldn't really be angry. I was angry about the finish, but I couldn't be angry about the build up to the finish because that match itself, it actually held my attention a lot better than I thought it was going to. So I'm gonna have to go middle of the road here. I'm gonna go with a 3.
Well, you know me. It's all about the story.
Yeah.
They told the story of being pissed off at each other and this just being a fight.
Yeah.
They told that early on. And then once somebody got the upper hand, now we see a wrestling match.
Yeah.
They told the story of the finish of the match. Because earlier on, we had after the Spanish fly from the apron onto the floor, they both nearly got counted out for a 10. Both of them just barely got in. In fact, I think Travis Banks got caught by Devlin, who tried to, I think he did some kind of move to him, threw him back into the barricade or something.
He did.
To prevent him from... But even still,
got in there at 8, and then Banks barely got in there for 10.
Jordan already had his arms raised up in victory, and he turned around and he was like, "Oh shit!"
The match was a really good match.
Yeah.
So I would put it up in somewhere between 3 and 4 just for the match. Take away a little bit for the ending because it did take all of that great match and completely flatten it out. Even though we know
it completely R. Kelly'd on it.
This is NXT UK, and I very much believe that this is leading to another match that hopefully will be even better. We'll actually see all of Devlin's greatest hits.
It may, who knows? Maybe it'll actually happen when they're in Phoenix.
Possibly.
Yeah.
So I'm going to actually go higher a little, just enough to call it higher. I'm going to go 3 1/4 spots of tea for this main event. Yeah. Not the best I've seen or anything, but a really good match and just a flat ending.
Yeah, I was about to say it really did pull something out of what I thought was going to be nothing. So that's why it got.
Or maybe the match was so good because the rest of the show was shitty. or the other 2 matches.
That could be the reason why too.
Anyway, definitely no extra quarter star coming off the back of a spectacular show, because it definitely wasn't that. But I highly recommend checking out the bulk of the main event.
Yeah.
Just don't get your hopes up for a definitive finish. Although I guess a double count out is still kind of definitive. It's better than a disqualification or some shit like that.
I don't see how either one of them would have gotten disqualified though.
Oh well.
Yeah.
Onward to next week, where we get Walter debuting and we get the tag team match. Who is it?
Mustache Mountain versus Fabian Eichner and Marcel Bartel.
Thank you for remembering names for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's what he does. 'Cause I'm terrible at forgetting names. No, I'm terrible at remembering names. I'm fabulous at forgetting them.
You're excellent.
So,
you're excellent at Stefan.
yes. Gary. So that brings us to the end of this episode of the NXT party. I want to thank you, Chris, for being on. And we look forward to having you on again, because we are going to continue to run these as long as we're getting views.
Yep.
So I'm sure we'll ask you to be on again. Hopefully our schedules can mesh up in, let's call it a month or 2. That's
Yeah.
usually about how it works its way around.
Rotation.
Yeah, and like I said, I started watching NXT UK, just watching y'all's reviews, and that's how I actually got into it, just because I was listening to y'all's reviews and actually started watching it and got interested in it, so that's why I started watching it. So
That's an honor to hear.
Yeah, that's the kind of story we want to hear when people come on, and we want you guys to be on. In fact, the next person that's going to be on this big screen, I believe, is going to be Jeff Meacham, because we're going to review NXT TakeOver Phoenix on Saturday. It'll probably go up on Sunday, so you have something to watch before the Royal Rumble. We are going to do Royal Rumble predictions. I believe we're doing that next. So
Yep.
It'll be available soon. We're going to have Noah on the big screen, part of the No DQ team. Hashtag Team No DQ. Also hashtag No DQ NX team.
NXT.
He's a member of the team there. And Chris Mace is now officially a member of the NX team.
Yep.
So if you get me on Facebook chat, on Facebook Messenger, we'll add you to the group chat. So that'll be fun.
Yep.
We got to get Martin in the group chat.
We do.
It's been a while, though. I'll have to get a hold of him. So, Chris, do you have anything that you want to plug?
you can just follow me on Facebook at Chris Forever Mace, and and that's pretty much the only plug I have on that.
Keeping it simple.
All right, so if you want to join us on the big screen for another episode of the NXT party, you can find me on Twitter. Just go to nodq.com/Stefan. That's STEFAN. Or if you just want to find me on Twitter, it's at Stefan R. Osborne, OSBORNE. As always, the R stands for restricted. And you can also find this gentleman on Twitter
At NoDQ General, and also my group on Facebook, Armbar, all capital, ARMBAR, exclamation point. And I made Stephanie one of the administrators not too long ago, so if he just hit one of us up and we'll get you in the group. We have plenty of different discussions going on and memes and pretty much your tomfoolery, but we a lot of great wrestling talk and a lot of great wrestling fans, so worth checking out.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us for a spot of NXT on this episode of the NXT Party, and we look forward to you joining us again next week for What's NXT and the NXT Party, and this weekend for our review of NXT TakeOver
So
Phoenix.
many podcasts.
Yes, 5 this week alone, but totally worth it. I love it.
Absolutely, it's a
we
good
do it
week to be a
because we
wrestling
enjoy
fan.
it. Yeah, we don't get paid for this shit. We do it because we enjoy it, and just so happens we stay up late anyway, so what the fuck ever. So, for the holiday, Chris Mace, for the General Jerry Slaughter, I am, of course, the Rated R reviewer, Stefan Osborne, and thanks for having a spot of NXT with us, and we will see you NXT time.
Cheerio.